In the dim winter of 1726, England watched a woman's body become a battleground between science and madness. Mary Toft was a poor cloth worker from Godalming, young, exhausted, and desperate in a world where a woman's suffering was ordinary and a poor woman's suffering was invisible. Until the day her pain became impossible to ignore. It began as whispers, then panic, then a story so grotesque, so unbelievable, it spread faster than the truth ever could. A woman was giving birth to rabbits. Not a metaphor, not a rumor. Actual rabbits. Tiny limbs, slick fur, torn flesh, pulled from her body as witnesses stared in horror. And the most dangerous part wasn't the claim. It was that doctors believed it. Mary's cottage was cold enough to sting the lungs. The air smelled of damp straw, smoke, and sickness. She lay on a rough bed, sweating through linen, her face pale and waxy in the candlelight. Each time a contraction hit, she arched like someone being torn open from the inside. Women held her down. A midwife prayed under her breath. And then came the impossible. A man named John Howard, a local surgeon, stood at the foot of the bed with his sleeves rolled up and his hands already shaking. He would later swear he saw it happen. Mary strained, screamed, and produced animal parts. Not one, not once, again and again. Fragments, bits of bone, something that looked like a rabbit's paw, a small head. The room didn't erupt into laughter. It went silent, like the world had stopped trusting its own laws. Howard did what people do when they see something they can't explain. He ran to men with titles. Within days, Mary Toft wasn't just a woman in agony. She was a national spectacle. Doctors arrived like hunters tracking a myth. They brought cases of instruments, ink and paper, the confidence of men who believed knowledge belonged to them. They prodded and examined, arguing in low voices, watching her stomach as if it might reveal the secrets of creation. And Mary kept producing rabbits. Small ones, larger ones, pieces that made grown men turn their heads and swallow bile. Newspapers began printing the story. Coffeehouses buzzed with it. Priests preached about omens. Skeptics scoffed. The curious begged to see her. People who had never cared about Mary Toft suddenly felt entitled to her pain. Because if it was true, if a human could give birth to animals, then everything was up for debate. God, nature, the human body, and the authority of medicine itself. And the men of medicine could not resist. They needed this to be real. A prominent physician from the royal court, Nathaniel Saint-André, traveled to see her. He was ambitious, hungry for recognition in a world where fame was written in blood and prestige. He examined Mary and declared, with the bold certainty of a man betting his future, this was no hoax. He described the births in clinical language as if turning horror into vocabulary would make it logical. He wrote reports, he collected specimens, he told other doctors what he'd seen. And the more the story spread, the more the pressure grew. Because once the impossible becomes popular, it becomes profitable. Mary was taken to London, not as a patient, as evidence. The city received her like a dark miracle. In London, the air was thicker, coal smoke, sewage, winter damp. Mary was housed and watched. Strangers circled her like vultures, waiting for another birth. Men with powdered wigs and sharp eyes leaned close to her bed, hungry to be present at history. But something about the spectacle began to shift. The rabbits didn't arrive like nature. They arrived like a performance. And the cracks started forming where the truth always breaks through, at the edges. A porter was caught trying to sneak a rabbit into Mary's chamber. A surgeon noticed something that didn't fit the story. The rabbits' bodies showed signs they had not come from a womb, but from somewhere else entirely. Some looked cut, handled, placed. The more they investigated, the uglier it got. And then came the moment the entire fantasy collapsed. Mary's interrogators stopped treating her like a mystery and started treating her like a suspect. They threatened her, cornered her, forced her into confession. And in a quiet, brutal unraveling, Mary Toft admitted the truth. There were no miracle births. There was no medical anomaly. It was a con. Rabbits had been inserted, piece by piece, so that doctors would deliver them and declare it impossible. The room didn't just fall silent. It turned cold. Because this wasn't only about Mary. It was about the men who had staked their reputations on her body. Mary was arrested. The newspapers that once celebrated her now devoured her. Doctors who had sworn it was real suddenly discovered humility. Too late. Saint-André's career was shattered. People laughed at rabbit births for years, turning it into a joke. But if you look closer, it's not funny.